Join me in saluting the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first appointment is the town clerk, Miss Candy.
Nice to see you with us.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for reaching out to me after my most recent medical emergency. I appreciate it. I would also like to publicly thank the Kingston Fire Department for being this much more stubborn than me and insisting that I go with them last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago. So, on a different note, just to let you know, we have from the second bill $456,000 left to collect. Other than that, everything's been paid.
Is that a lower percentage, Tammy?
Yes. Yeah. We
Within
still
range of normal?
have. Yeah. We still have 189,000 left from the first bill. So there's usually a couple $100,000 that's not collected. So it's still coming in, but slowly. So.
Good, good.
But why I'm really here tonight is I'm asking for. I don't know if you have all seen this letter. I'll pass it out. It's from Bud Fitch, who's the legal advisor up at the Secretary of State's office. He is talking about what can be spent with the CARES grant. The money's how it can be spent. And I'm asking for a stipend to be paid to the supervisors of the checklist. They worked incredibly hard this year. They've had the same salary since 2004, which is $400 a piece. Ken, who's the chairman, estimates that he put in 180 hours, so that's $2.22 an hour.
I'll give it to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I not give you another? I have another one. Here, no, I have one. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Like I said, it works out to about $2.22 an hour. Claudine was elected in March. She actually assisted with the pre-processing of the absentee ballots. In March, we had 467 voters. In September, 4,908. So we had 231 people that came in that were new registered voters, and then 33 on election day. In the November election, we had 321 people registering to vote on election day. So they also, just so you know, the supervisors of the checklist have to input all the new registered voters so that they can use the absentee ballot.
In the state database.
In the state database. They have to put in all name changes, party changes. Then they go to the election day, but the whole day they're there. They have to input, if someone's undeclared, they have to input that they came in as undeclared, they voted Republican or Democrat, then they have to change them back to undeclared again. They have to input, every person has a voter ID number. They have to input that they actually were there on election day. So, on the November election, they had to punch in those numbers for every single person that voted. They also send out 30-day letters when we know someone moved out of town. They send them a letter to say, hey, you're going to be taken off the voter checklist, and then they send a letter to the state where they moved to let them know that they moved it to that town. So they have a lot of work to do, and the election, I think you all know that it ran really smoothly, and I couldn't have done it without supervisors of the checklist.
And this, I don't think you all understand the volume of work that has increased in the last few years for the supervisor. It used to be something as simple as updating a list that only Holly used to do.
Right. She used to do
And
all.
she used to be like the assistant record clerk of secretarial services to the supervisor of the checklist. But the world has changed dramatically in the last 5 years as voter registration issues have arisen, and we get more and more dictates coming in from the state and the feds and to upgrade our system. So now everything is electronic, and we're not that far off from having a database that's live even as we
Right.
we vote.
And we want the grants, I did get 2 laptops, and they, unfortunately, on the last election, they couldn't keep up because with, so many voters, same day, they couldn't input, but they were inputting it as they could. So, but like at the town election, they'll be able to sit there and input them right there and then. It'll be real time, so. Like I said, so that piece of paper that you have from Bud Fitch says that you guys, as the governing body, can decide how to spend that money. I got $5,000 from one grant and then about 13 from the other. So there's.
So what's your recommendation to the board?
Well, if you said $10 an hour for Ken, that'd be $1,800. I'm not asking for that, but I think.
You're not gonna get that.
I know, I'm not gonna ask for that, but I think Ken, certainly $300 would be, just something to acknowledge that we appreciate his hard work, and then, maybe a little less for Claudine and Chuck, but like I said, I Ken really.
As a one-time stipend?
As a one-time stipend.
If you do look on paragraph 2 on that letter, it does say that the project accounting firm Betty Dunn has advised that their research concludes that a stipend is allowed for salaried employees.
Yeah, but they're not salaried.
Don't they get?
They get a stipend.
Right,
It's
they
an
get
annual stipend, whether we
$400.
have 1 election or 4 elections.
Right.
And that may not necessarily be fair. And we as a board have talked about the fact that we should review the stipends that we do pay or not, like, for example, the moderator who doesn't get one in this town. But that's not, but we may want to look at everything in one fell swoop. I do have to support Mrs. Baker in this because the preparation for this election was monumental, to say the very least. It was extraordinary.
And they held, I'm sorry, they did hold extra sessions so that we could get them on the checklist so we can get the absentee ballots out. They did 4 extra sessions for the November election.
The presidential election traditionally has a big turnout and a big registration every 4 years, no
Right.
matter what.
Right.
But this year was extremely unusual, and the oversight from the state and the feds was tremendous. They did a yeoman's job. I would endorse your request to pay the chair of the supervisors $300 and $150 for each of the 2 associate supervisors.
Do you want to wait and look at it all in total, or you want to make a motion
No,
now?
I feel real comfortable with that. We may want to look at when they get their annual stipend. We may want to look at whether they should get paid by elections versus an annual. But I think this year was extraordinary. We're in the middle of COVID. As you know, the changes to our process was tremendous, and they were a big part of making it work well. So I see it as a one-time deal, and but it should still be reviewed in total with the other stipends that are distributed to different volunteers. Because really, it's a volunteer position that gets a stipend, but this one was extraordinary, in my opinion.
So that's a motion.
That was the motion.
Second.
And what amount?
$300 for the chair and $150 for each of the other 2. So a total of $600.
And with a second.
And Kevin just seconded it for me.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Anyone?
I would just say I wasn't there. I had my pro temp was there, and I know there was a lot of work done. So I do appreciate on behalf of the town.
The last paragraph covers what you want to do here as far as Bud Fitch is concerned. Last paragraph in his letter. So that does cover it.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So just so I'm clear on this is the
Grant money.
grant money that we received, we're allocating some of it via stipend to the supervisor of the checklist and
The 3 supervisors, right?
3 supervisors,
That's correct.
Yep.
which is what the grant was intended for.
Yeah,
Getting used to
they based it on $11.22 per absentee ballot. They based it on how many absentee ballots we processed. And in this letter, it says you can give stipends to, you guys decide where to spend it. And I haven't, and like I said, there was $13,000, I haven't asked you to spend a dime of it. So this is my first and only request, so.
Do you feel, no, I'm on the same page. Do you feel that's enough?
I feel that if I'd asked for any more, that I probably would have had some resistance, so. I'm just trying to be fair.
This is where I'm gonna jump in, because they knew going in what they were gonna get paid, and they still, I personally totally appreciate all that they did. I think what we're doing is more than reasonable for now. So I say going forward, we should do something different, but it says thank you very much, again.
Okay, further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Alessio.
Yes.
Briggs.
Yes.
Coombs.
Yes.
St. James.
Yes.
And Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye, Tammy. Thanks.
Okay, there's only a point this evening. That brings us to the first public comment section of the evening. If there's anyone in the public who'd like to be here. Sit here.
Sure.
Please.
Thank you. It's good to see more than 3 selectmen. This is awesome. 5 brains are better than 3, I guess, right?
Sir, if you could just identify yourself and where you're,
My name
where you
is
live.
Bob Ducharme. I live at 36 Main Street, Kingston. And so I got a letter in the mail today. I thought it was a Christmas card from the selectmen. But it did say that somehow I've been identified as a person who's storing a boat, equipment, or other items on the town-owned lot near Sands Lane. And you're asking me to remove this within 7 days. So I guess I need to find out from somebody here, what equipment am I storing? Do I have a boat, do I have equipment?
So there are 6 or 7 watercraft, shall we say, that are parked on town land. The area immediately adjacent to the town boat launch.
Yep.
And between the town boat launch and Sands Lane. We had a surveyor go down there to make sure that that is our land,
Yep.
and it is.
And so I saw those stakes. Is he staking out the lot 3 property, or is he staking out the town property?
Town.
He's staking out the town. So then the last stake that he drove on that line, does that indicate the end of the town property? Because it's not an infinite line that goes into the lake, right? The town doesn't go into the lake 20 feet or 30 feet or 50 feet, right? It's not an infinite line.
No, it only goes to the high water.
Right, so would that last stake in the ground there be the
I don't believe so. I think what he did is he set 2 or 3 stakes just to show where the town line was,
Okay, well, that makes it difficult as to where
or it ends.
it ends, or how am I gonna, I do have a couple of kayaks down there because it's a recreational lake that I live on that we use frequently. We still are kayaking until it freezes. But am I not allowed to bring a kayak down there and put it right there on the beach so that I can go out and kayak and come back and put it there? My neighbor also has the same situation. I mean, she's 75. She's not going to bring her kayak up and down every time we use it. So what's the situation with that beach? That's a town beach, right? Is that a town beach?
Yes.
Town beach.
So the intent of this were people were storing motorboats, jet skis, things like that on town land. And so the intent was to remove those pieces from town land. And that's been, as we're becoming aware of these situations where there is town land and people are leaving vehicles,
Yeah.
ATVs, all
So
these
just to be
things.
clear, none of that belongs to me. That all belongs to somebody else. I think the stuff that I'm being cited for here is way down at the end, at the edge of the water.
So there's a little bit of everything there. There's concrete blocks, there's snow plows, there's boats.
Well, that's before the garage, right, Chief?
Yeah, I'm just kind of giving them an overview. So there's a lot of everything. So you know, some of the people are saying, well, if they move their stuff, I'll move mine. So you're gonna get into one of those things. That's, so make the board aware of that.
Well, the point was that you wouldn't have storage all winter. I mean, I didn't know you were still kayaking now, because it's getting kind of chilly. It's been
It
nice,
is,
but.
but it's
today's
fun.
nice. Yeah, well, that's it. I don't think that was our intent, but we don't feel that everyone should be storing their boats, their personal vehicles on town land, because it becomes a liability to the town.
Okay.
That's the issue. I mean, did I do all right in that?
Yeah, it's,
I guess the board needs to make a decision. Are we talking boats or are we talking everything?
well, it is everything, because what it becomes is, you put a kayak there. Well, why can't I put a jet ski there? What size? And it's essentially, any property that does not belong to the town shouldn't be on town land. And there's obviously, during the season, when people are using that, you have it there overnight or for a couple weeks or whatever, that's one thing. But when people are planning to store the stuff on town land over the winter, that's where we have a problem with it.
Okay. So I guess we still have that idea, where is the town land? Where, because he stopped, right? The surveyor stopped. It'd be nice if he continued and
To the high water mark.
mapped out to where the town land is, yeah.
So we only own to the high water mark. And anywhere along the lake, anyone doesn't own to the high water mark. I mean, they only own to the.
Well, I'm gonna guess it's a straight line over that way,
Well,
right?
what he's saying, I understand what you're saying. So the water comes up so far, and where that water stops, that's the high water mark, that's where our property would pick up, or the town's property would pick up and go from there. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, I mean, the line doesn't go into the lake, right? It just,
Yes.
it's not infinite.
It goes to the lake.
Goes to the lake, but where,
That's what this shows.
right, but there's some sort of a buffer around the lake that belongs to the state, doesn't belong to the town, right? So, I mean, so if we had a kayak on the state property, not the town property,
But that would be, okay, now you're skimming here. We're going down a very narrow path. If it's summer and it's in season and the boats are out there, I personally don't have a problem with it.
I like,
But once the season ends, you gotta get it out of there.
Fair
Because there's a liability. And I'm gonna use Ridgewood, who's a neighbor of yours on the other side of the lake, and where I live, and we let people, they pay fees to the association, our members, to put their boats down in the dock and all that stuff. But come the end of the season, they gotta get everything out.
I think that's very fair, Alex. If the board agree with that, I think that's very fair. But for the summertime, we're up and down, like we live up on the street, on the lakeside, we don't have to cross the street, we live up on the hill. And we want to walk down and use the lake, and use recreational stuff, and then walk back up and go to the bathroom, have lunch or something, and go back down. We don't always want to be dragging those things up and down that hill.
Everyone else has to drag theirs. I guess, I don't know, it's winter time. I would ask, if that's what we're trying to avoid, it's the stuff that's not, especially if there's a plow down there.
Well, there's one.
We're trying to different from now, winter and summer. We have to,
Yeah,
that's
so, it's, let's do one at a time.
Okay, well, I'd like to ask the board for one other thing, though, is this letter was on the 10th, and I didn't get it till today, the 14th, and you're giving me 7 days from this letter. I need a little bit more time. It's Christmas time. I'm out trying to work and shop and whatever. I need a little bit more time to get that out.
Until the 21st.
The 21st?
That's 7 days.
Oh, from today?
Only thing I would worry about is the snowstorm at the end of the week.
I know, that's fair. So I got one problem, is I have a pontoon paddle boat, and I usually bring it out to the boat dock and launch it that way, but now it doesn't paddle and it'll sink if I try to take it out. The other way I can take it out is for me to drive down the right of way with my truck to pull it out that way. But unfortunately, the right of way has been skewed over the last couple of years. So I don't know how I'm gonna get that out of there. Can I borrow the fire truck?
See, this is why we don't want people leaving stuff on town land.
I know.
But this is what happens though, it's,
I understand.
it just becomes, well, I've always kept this there, and he has that there, so why can't I keep that there? Well, they've got that there, why can't I put that there?
I understand.
And I understand you want to be on the water, you have a deeded right of way to the water for your property. That's the only rights you have to the water.
I do.
Okay, and so,
Deeded right away.
but to Kevin's point, there are other people who'd love to have a kayak sitting on the water, ready to rock and get out on the water right away, but they can't just leave it there, because then we'll have 30 kayaks just floating around the lake.
Well, there's only 3 houses that have that deed to use that right away to bring their kayak down there. Unless you think it's a public thing. I mean, can the public drag their thing from the road and go down there and use it? Right, so that's the other, I mean, this can get really deep. Now, I've been here 30 years, so I've been in and out and trying to do the best I can with all of the issues down there, right? But I like the summer thing. I'll definitely do that. The 21st, I'll do my best to get that out of there. I don't know how I'm gonna get it out of there. Your letter says that if I don't get it out, you'll get it out somehow, so I don't know how you're gonna get that big thing out of there. But, so in 30 years, this has never come up. So if this would've came up a little bit in the summer or earlier, then it'd give us some time. But this just came up just like this, like we gotta get rid of it right now. And I'm sure the other guys that have stuff on there are trying to figure out what to do. When are they gonna get their stuff out too, you know? So it's kind of a tough thing right now at this time of year, so. But,
I mean, we did talk about it in a public meeting, I believe, on 3 separate occasions.
Yep.
So, and I understand not everybody watches the selectmen's meeting, but I can tell you that when these things are brought to our attention, we have no choice but to act. We have to, and what was happening was someone was supposedly charging for storage on town land. And I'm addressing him, I'll get to you as soon as we're done talking with him. It's one person at a time. So, this happens when the town gets involved. It's seldom a result that anybody wants, but it just becomes unequivocal action. We have to say, sorry, you can't store stuff on town land.
okay.
And that's where we're at. We're willing to work with you on getting it out of there, but it needs to be out of there before, well, Wednesday is when the snow flies, but.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, so,
Does the right-of-way still have those stumps there to block egress to the
yeah,
water?
unfortunately, the right-of-way used to be a straight shot,
Right.
and then my deed says that I can bring my truck down there.
Yeah,
But now it zigzags because he's trying to create problems, so.
oh, the same gentleman that was creating problems
In this-
years ago?
And this tree's hanging over like this, so my truck would get all scratched up if I tried to go down that right away with that. So it's kind of a really tough situation, but you know what? I'm gonna see what I can do. I mean, if I try to paddle it over to the boat dock and it sinks, I may have to just leave it there. I guess, I don't know.
When you're on town property, you got, when you drive downtown property, you got the photo.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. So since those stakes are there now behind the garage, that's town property now. Can I just drive my truck down that town
You
property?
have permission from the town to utilize town property, remove your property from town property.
I brought ammunition there, but, okay, perfect. So can we just solidify the idea that in season, we can bring a kayak down there and use it?
Suggestion that you come see us in March.
Okay.
End of March, and say, okay, let's put something in place so that you guys can store your summer equipment there, short term, and then.
Excellent.
And I would put a caveat on that, if you could meet with the recreation director, Paul Butler, who
Yeah.
kind of has purview over that area, it would probably be better if you could coordinate with him to,
Yeah, I don't know when the last time one of you guys were down there, but there's a lot more stuff on there other than my equipment. I'm not talking about before the garage, like on the beach right now, there's a whole dock that's all stacked up and everything, so I don't know.
We're working on it.
Okay. I'll just worry about my stuff right now. I appreciate your time. This is my neighbor, Marge, maybe she'll like to say a couple of things. Thank you.
Yes, I'm the one with the kayaks, seasonal. No, they're not down there now. They haven't been since the weather got cold. I have two kayaks, one for my buddy and one for me. And I cannot drag those up the hill to my property every time I want to go out in a kayak. They're not being stored. Everybody in the summer moves their stuff down to the water. But I'm in my 70s. and I cannot drag those kayaks up and down. So I went, and I put them, the beach, right near the woods. Now, I don't know when you're near the water, there's supposed to be so many feet. So mine are right there, just where the wooded area is. And, because I don't want to show them off to everybody anyhow, somebody will steal them. They're right there on the edge, and I tip them over and I put them right there. And they're out of the way, nobody's gonna trip over them. And I cannot drag them back up to the house. If I have to drag them every time I go down there, I would never kayak again. I'd probably hurt myself. And I just want to make sure. And where does that line stop and the town begin? Because I put my kayaks right there.
The stake down there, Marge, you can see it.
You know what I mean? I'm right on the edge near the woods.
I really don't, if I'm being honest. I have no clue what you're talking about because I haven't been down there to see it. I know it's staked out, so.
Well, the beach is, if you're using this, of course it's curved, but it comes up, and then there's no more beach, there's a wooded area as you go around, and then it goes into all the brush on the other
I'll take
side.
your word for it. I'll take your word for it because I don't think you can go see it right now.
But my kayaks aren't on the beach and they aren't stored, they're just at the edge for the summer, so I don't have to drag them because I can't.
But bring them back up in the winter.
Yeah, they're already in. They go up every
Well,
September.
that's our main concern right now. is the winter.
And I think if you want to talk with your neighbors in March when we revisit this issue as far as storing things throughout the season, we can talk about that then. Our primary goal right now is to get the stuff off of
They've
town.
got boat trailers and all this, that's storage. A kayak that you can pull in the water and go for a ride is not storage.
Well, it's still an item that doesn't belong to the town.
I mean, if I do that, I'll be in the hospital. So, so I just want to know that I can put them there. I don't put them way out because I don't want to invite people to borrow it.
So what I would say, ma'am, again, is if you get with your neighbors, we can actually go out there in March when before the season starts, we can look at it and, figure something out at that time. But I haven't been down there in 20
Well,
years.
they're right next to the wood. I mean, if we're going to trip over something, we trip over the boulders that were placed on the beach. So there's certainly less problem than boulders. So I just want to make sure that I can do that.
We won't know until March when we talk about it again.
Right?
We won't, in March, we're gonna talk about it again, so that's, does it get taken up now?
Marge,
We'll revisit it in March.
It'll be decided in March? I don't understand what we're...
I don't understand.
Right now, what the town is trying to do is just get other people's property off of the town property for the winter.
But I don't have anything there anyway.
Okay,
You're all
thank you
set.
for doing that.
But if somebody were to tell me that I can't bring my kayaks down there seasonally, I'd have to give them up. I just want them to understand.
Okay, what we'd like to do is in March, we're gonna meet with the recreation director. Your neighbors have indicated they want to meet
Okay,
and set
that's
something
what you're
up.
talking about March.
Correct.
I didn't know what this March was.
Yep.
Okay, maybe my hearing aids. Okay, so they're not down there now, and
You're good.
I will want to know what's happening in March. But if anybody tells me that I can't have my kayaks near the water, like everybody else does around the lake, I'm going to be very upset. Okay. So there's no way of saying where the town and the water things
Not right now.
coincide?
No.
Marge, we're gonna do it again. We're gonna do it again tomorrow.
Okay. Because I know it's so many feet, and my kayak isn't up on the grass that high. Okay.
Thank you for coming in. Mr. St. Hilaire.
Believe it or not, I have some information for the Board of Selectmen and the neighbors. So, what we're talking about, the right-of-way to the beach, is clearly defined in a court order, and the fact that that beach is open for everybody. It was in the, I believe, early 50s, There was a gentleman owned the property and actually blocked that right away to get to the town beach, because back in the 50s and 60s, Briggs can remember back in the 60s, I know.
He was a cop.
Were you in kindergarten?
There was no boat landing right there, either one that's right by the dam. They didn't exist. The dam was there, it was a ramshackle piece of crap. Sometime in the 70s or 80s that the state put the boat landings in, for the boat landing. And then that's when they gave the town the piece of property that you're talking about, where people are parking their boats. Originally, that was owned by the mills in Amesbury, because that was part of the piece of property the dam was on. That was to store water, to send water down to the mills in Amesbury. So it went from the mills in Amesbury, then the state of New Hampshire owned the whole piece, and then the state of New Hampshire gave the town of Kingston a big chunk of it. They only kept what the dam was on. Basically from where the guardrails are that separate the two boat landings to where the rec building is now. That's the piece of state land. There was a court order, there was a court decision handed down by a Superior Court judge in the 50s, laying out that lane that goes down to the water, because that was the only access to the water. And a lot of the residents were miffed that they were blocked from being able to launch their boats down there. I've actually read the court order. It exists in this building somewhere in a legal file. If not, I'm sure it exists in the Superior Court. You might want to have someone do some research and find that before you make any more decisions, because technically that's town beach.
But regardless, I don't think the intent was to allow people to store watercraft there through the
Nope,
winter.
I don't believe so.
And I agree, I think we do need more information before we proceed on any further decisions, so that's why in March we would
Yep.
revisit it at that time.
Yep, I'm just saying there's more information. That, again, you want to buy an old guy's old recollection, but I know I read it.
Well, I might add, I also studied that court order, and that right-of-way that it talks about in that court order is not the same right-of-way that's there now.
I can't hear you over there, sir.
Said I looked at that court order, and that right-of-way that's there now, that it talks about in that court order, is not the same right-of-way that's there now. So somebody let them put a septic on top of the right-of-way that was not supposed to be changed. It was a public right-of-way. There was no vote to do it. There was nothing. The town just allowed them to put in a septic over the top of that, and then move the right-of-way and jag it this way. So now we can't go down to the lake with our trucks and boats, even though our deed says we can. So, we kind of swallow that pill and say, what are we going to do? The town rule, I can't really do anything about it. So we try to play nice in the sandbox, and we try to stay out of that. We walk down there, we drag our kayaks down there in the spring, drag them back in the winter. But when you're looking at that court order, and thank you for bringing that up, I think it's null and void because the right-of-way is not the same right-of-way that they talked about. So I'm just curious, and just kind of a side thing, what about the garage that's on the town property? Does it just get a...
To be determined.
Okay, you guys are still discussing that. You were pretty complete in saying that nothing should be on town property. Well, that is too, so I guess you guys are probably discussing that. Okay.
Is that a meeting that we discussed?
Yeah, can I get copied on these meetings somehow, or I have to just...
There's an email distribution list that you can sign up for, so all the agendas for the select board or any board that meets in town, you will be
Okay.
notified via
On
email.
the website, I can
Yep.
sign up for that.
On the homepage, there's a left-hand menu there. It
Imagine
shows
that.
some
Okay.
activities. Yeah.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, you too.
Any other public comment?
Another issue. I got another issue. You
got a PO in your folder somewhere for a new truck for building maintenance. It's for $39,000. It's a state bid price. If there's any questions, I'd like to see the PO signed and the money encumbered out of this year's budget.
For the truck, yeah, it's in there.
I'm just here for any questions. I can tell you that's a state bid truck. It's a regular pickup truck with a regular cab, 8-foot bed, 1 ton. I plan on putting a 9-foot plow on it and like a Reading type body on the back for building maintenance. That price, that $39,000 doesn't include that. It's a diesel. Again, that's state bid. It's a Ford. I can tell you I can reduce the price of that to $29,000 if you let me change the state bid and put a gas motor on it. And give you the exact number.
Is there any reason why we want a diesel for something that's just gonna bang around town, start and stop?
I would prefer a gas one. I don't think it's worth the $10,000 to put diesel in it.
It makes an easy decision.
But that truck was bid out as a diesel. I can get a crew cab, you know. I can get a 2-wheel drive. I don't want a 2-wheel drive, obviously, so we'll put a plow on it. But I've talked to the vendor, and they will back that diesel out. It's about a $10,000 difference. So the only thing is, technically, if you do that, it's not a state bid truck, because the state bid truck was the diesel. But they will allow us to back that out. Just like there's power package, they call it, which includes heated mirrors, automatic windows, so that when you're plowing, you can put the windows down for the drivers and not back out in traffic, and heated mirrors and things like that. So that's an add-on. That's about an $850 add-on to the state bid price. Well, I'd like to take off the diesel, about 10 grand, and only spend about $29,000.
So if you're gonna be putting a different body on it, is that with the bed delete on there as well?
It does, but the bed delete is only $385, and I know I can sell it for $1,500 every day of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't make sense to not take the truck with a bed on it.
Yeah.
Plus, I've got a green truck that's got a bed on it that looks like heck.
What color is this one gonna be?
This one's red, but
Does it come with the tailgate already smashed, or are you gonna do that?
you gotta work on smashing the tailgate.
Yeah, is there so many mailboxes per
Now, wait a
truck?
minute, is this the same guy that's wrecked a ladder truck, $1 million ladder truck twice? Did that come from the guy that
I
wrecked
think
two
he did.
ladder?
I didn't wreck it. It was just a little.
Yeah.
I never heard of this.
Crash?
So I'm just out of curiosity. So why did we bid it as a diesel? We did
It
it.
didn't, I just took the list of trucks. You can get, and that truck is for Groponi.
Yeah.
The other truck that's closer to what I want, the winning bid is down in Torrington, Connecticut, and it's a Dodge. I'd rather keep the fleet all Fords, that's what I've got. And the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no trouble with him shifting trucks as he pleases, especially if it's a money saver.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously those ones that those guys have been using are
Yeah.
been on their last legs for the past.
So you haven't bought a truck for building maintenance
Yeah.
since 1990. The vehicles that run now are 2001 van that Don got military surplus, which has got a lot of rust issues. And the 1985 Chevy pickup truck, 1985. I mean, people run around in one of those, but that's what they use.
Are you gonna retire the old fire department forestry, or is it?
That was retired last year, would not need a motor job. So that's
Put
gone.
a good plow truck on the road too, so.
Okay.
So that's why that PO is there, that's what I'd like to do. You can sign that PO the way it is, and I'm pretty sure that I've already got the quotas. 10,000 something. It's $10,000 cheaper.
That's 98.
I've already signed it.
Do you need a motion or anything?
No, just sign the PO. Thank you. I was just here if there's any questions so I can explain myself.
We know where to find you.
Yeah, but I wanted to sign tonight because it's getting towards the end of the year and I want to encumber those funds
Yeah.
out of this year's budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, old business, sale of town-owned land. Policy was brought in last week, and Rich,
I took it to Sumner. I think there's a thing in the folder of his response, but basically, he didn't think we needed a policy if we followed the RSA. And he thought we ought to take every lot on an individual case, and by writing a policy, it may hinder us in doing that. And his issue was that if you get into the Great Pond area, that if you have a policy, those guys may get together and say, you know, we're the only ones that can buy it, let's bid real cheap. You know, that type of situation. He said, you know, the best way to sell land is on an auction on the front steps. Figure out all the land you want to sell, put it up there, and put any limitations on each one, like must be in a butter.
and I think, well, as our first public comment showed, every piece of land is unique and has very different
That was his point.
covenants upon it or next to it or whatever, so, I guess my only, well, I mean, if he feels that following the RSA is gonna keep the town out of trouble
That's
in this, then,
kind of how I understood it. Like I said, there's a response letter from him in your folder.
Yeah, but that's what this policy pretty much is just
Yes,
following
yeah.
exactly the RSA.
Yeah,
That's what it
It
is.
just sets it in steps.
Right.
I think I put one sentence at the end that maybe is
It is the RSA.
Yeah, but I like that sentence. The law said at the discretion of the board, certain properties that are non-conforming as building lots may be offered only to abutters.
that was per your discussion
And
last
that's, we had talked about that last week.
Because I think, I don't want to get the other way that someone comes, well, no, I want that land. Well, no, why would you? Because that's where you're getting sellable and all that. I thought what we did for the policy, it just took the RSA and
This, I think, is good, this policy, the RSA with
I
these.
agree with that.
Okay. I make a motion that we adopt the policies and procedures as outlined in RSA 41:14-8. As described on the town of Kingston policy dated 12/13, today's 14/20.
okay, we've got a motion and a second, further discussion.
You know, I don't know. We asked Sumner, and I disagree with his assessment. I think the policy that was written is exactly the RSA, giving us the opportunity to do what we wanted at will based on each individual lot.
This is a lot simpler than all the stuff that we had
Yeah.
sent to anyway, so I think we should go with this. We may want to, down the road, put a group together, a subgroup task force, to kind of review some of the available lots in town and look at it.
Yeah.
That's a different block.
I want to clean up some of the stuff, the Hillsbury pasture, the couple on Great Pond that we know of, and then we need to, like I said, look at all other stuff.
But don't forget that this town has 25% of the land designated as in conservation, which is high for any town. I bet there are around 10 other towns that have as much in conservation.
It's actually only 22%.
But they're building to 25, which means we'll go to 30, because we went at 15 and we went to 20 and to 25.
We can't legislate for what might happen.
I understand that, But by the same token, the conservation group may have some of these pieces of land designated already, and it may not be as big a task to look at what is available in Kingston in one fell swoop. Just saying, I mean, but that's a separate, I think that's a separate task to put together. But I like this policy here for short term.
Well, his other comment is that our job is to get as much for a lot as we can. And
That's true.
public auction does that. And just beware of anything you set up regarding a butters type thing. under the same thing, I turned 107 New Boston Road into him with pictures, and he's gonna follow through with a letter to the bank that owns it now.
All right, so further discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Alessio?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coombs?
No.
St. James?
Yes.
And Wilson?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Mosquito and tick control contract. The health officer felt that they were both comparable, but he has stated that Dragon has the experience and has been in town for quite some time, so if he were to, I'm assuming he's putting a plug in for them based on that.
Basically, yeah.
But there are some more money, but,
$3,000 difference, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say we go with a cheaper bid.
I'm gonna make a motion for the second bid,
Not Dragon?
not Dragon.
Northeast vegetation and mosquito control.
Yes.
So you made the motion?
Yep.
I'll second it.
And what, is it strictly money?
Money and, yeah, they're gonna do the same thing. I think, you know, it's very minimal what they actually do when they're testing.
Testing.
Yeah, it's only testing. It's not spraying on when needed. But yeah.
Okay, well, it doesn't hurt to try, but cheaper doesn't necessarily mean better. That's,
Yeah, I had, during the 325th, I tried contacting Dragon Mosquito and it took 4 phone calls before they returned my phone call.
there's a good reason.
I feel like they're under an assumption that they're just gonna roll over and take it every time. And,
Fair enough.
you know,
Okay. I think it's,
this may make them come back with a more competitive bid next time.
So, the one thing I would ask, and I'm looking at you, Kevin, since you have feelings on this, would you want to follow up with the references as provided, just to make sure that other municipalities have been happy with them?
Yeah, sure. If you want to, I'll withdraw my motion if you want me to follow up.
Well, I think we can make the motion, but just pending, you know,
Okay, favorable.
Affirmation of references.
Favorable reviews from other towns.
Affirmation of references.
Okay.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Alessio?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coombs?
Yes.
St. James?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
After bidding, I'll contact the towns.
All right, next up is the town report publishing agreement.
Well, I move that we order 200 books instead of the 400.
Okay, we got a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Further discussion.
Just one comment is that they act like if we had to order another 200, it was not a big deal, that it
It
was
was the same price, right?
already set up and everything, so.
So what they're saying is that the plates they won't get rid of the plates
Right.
until later. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and do that.
Plates.
Yeah,
Well, they're digital plates now. They're digital, stop it.
basically, I sent them a PDF and they
It's
printed.
digital plates.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote, please.
Alessio?
Yes.
Briggs?
Yes.
Coombs?
Yes.
St. James?
Yes.
And Wilson?
Yes.
All in favor? I will get that rolling.
Okay, new business. There's a consulting services agreement. You know, nothing like 16 days left in the month at this stage of the year.
This is a WTS situation.
Do you need a motion to sign it? Because
No,
it's already approved, right? I mean, it's already been approved.
it's been my experience that when a contract lapses and the employee continues service, the contract stays in effect for that time period. So even though it's lapsed by date, we're still working under the auspices of that contract. That's what happens, let's say, with the teachers. I'll use the teachers as an example. If a teacher's contract expires and they're still in negotiation, that contract stays in place at that level.
Yeah, status quo.
Exactly. So He may not have had a signed contract, but certainly he had a contract. He certainly provided services, I'm assuming, for a year. And now we come before us? I think this is...
I can't believe he hasn't been paid in all the time.
I can't believe it just came to our attention up 2 months ago. Or
And I can't believe it's not butter. Do we have any thoughts on avoiding this happening in the future?
Nothing I can say at this
I
time.
mean, shouldn't contracts be hit by a certain date, i.e. not December 14th of 2020, for 2020?
Or is a clause that protects us if it's not, so
I think the contract should go into effect January 2021 for the 2021 year, with an extension thereafter to renew. But, this is pretty messy.
This is the original,
What is it?
the contract for the mosquito.
our purchasing
That's the
policy
same one.
says that consultants are exempt from our purchase policy, so we can pretty much do what we need to.
Well, I guess it would start with this one, Richard, and I mean, because he's directly tied to the planning board. I think I'm getting a sense from the board that we would not like this to be the case next year. Yes, that we don't want to be signing a contract for 2020 in December of 2020.
Absolutely not. That's why I would even sign this one, pay him for the year, believe it or not, and start a new contract January 1.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what happened here.
There's no,
I think we need an explanation.
This just shows up in our packet.
What's the explanation?
this is just the scope of service, it's not really even a contract.
It's not even a
You had-
contract,
it's
Well,
a
the rest of it's
contract.
in the signature file.
Okay,
Well, maybe we might want to go into non-public. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Just, or let's take, you know what? Let's make copies of the contract. Let's take a look at it. Let's take it under advisement for the next meeting. I don't want to.
Okay, but the next meeting is not next Monday, it's the following Monday. So we're not meeting next Monday.
Oh, we're not meeting
Because
next
it's
week.
Christmas that week, and we typically don't meet Christmas week.
Okay.
well,
Do we want to meet next Monday and not meet the 28th and have the week before?
I'd rather not meet next week.
I'm with Rich.
Next week I had a request from Ellen too. Well, she needs to know because she's gonna be using the room.
First of all, we're not stopping him from getting paid. I mean, there's nothing that says he can't be paid because it
Right.
carries over when we don't have a
That's
budget.
what I really, I am
And
not
I don't
comfortable.
know why it would hurt to wait 2 weeks, is my point.
I'm not comfortable signing a contract for
I agree.
2020 when it's all over.
I agree.
I don't, we should pay him for services for this past year, and then we go forward with a new contract for 2021.
I'm agreeing with you, and that's why I don't think it'll hurt if we wait till the 28th and talk about it.
Totally agree.
I would also add that if we're going to be signing something, it shouldn't be assisting in developing the processing for establishing a 70/90 program for the town. I think that's already been established. I think it probably, and, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't read the contract, so I just saw this sheet.
That's the sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how does he get paid now? Well, I don't know why he didn't get paid, so what do we do now?
I thought he had been getting paid, so.
I assume that, who would work for nothing for
The
a year?
thing that scares me is that we've released bonds that he's done work on, and I hope his time is charged off to those bonds.
I don't see why it wouldn't have been.
I don't either, but I don't know why he wouldn't have had a contract in either.
Well, I think as Don said, we need some more information.
I will talk to him and everything before our 28th meeting. I know what's going on.
He's gonna have a heck of an income tax deduction on the one check. Maybe that will be a good lesson.
Well, I don't know if we deduct taxes from him anyway. He's a private contractor.
So, okay, yeah, you're right.
Probably 1099, yeah.
Get a big 1099,
Yeah.
in which case he's behind schedule.
We're in New Hampshire.
I'm funny about some things. Wow. I didn't, never mind.
All right, so we good with that?
Yeah.
All right. Committee liaison reports. I'm gonna start because I forgot my cheat sheet last week, so I've got a couple things I wanna follow up on that I'll get yelled at on Thursday if I don't, so. Fieldstone. There's been no pre-construction meeting, conditional approval only, and they've logged the entire hill off, and they have material going in there. Which kind of segues into another thing, is, well, why don't we talk about that first?
I'll bring it up tomorrow night.
Okay.
So you hadn't met the conditions of the condition approval, and you got no permits yet? Okay.
When are we gonna get a code enforcement officer?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because he was doing work in there when he wasn't supposed to, and we talked to him and he said, well, I had to do this or I had to do that. Do we want to serve a cease and desist?
He's already under a cease and desist from the first time he was doing work without proper permitting.
So you don't feel like that was lifted when he had, conditional approval, shouldn't have been?
So either we're gonna enforce the fines on there, or what the plan is. I guess that's up to the planning board.
Okay.
But I think we need to work with the planning board to establish more procedures for a pre-construction meeting. Minutes probably need to be taken. I know Dennis usually runs them, but there's a lot of things that are really important that are covered, but we're almost and kind of zip through. And I also think a butter should probably be notified for a pre-construction meeting. Because one of the ones we had recently, the people, had no idea why all of a sudden work was happening, and they were kind of taken aback by that. So at least if people are notified, they know that there's a pre-construction meeting happening. But I'd be willing to sit in with the planning board, if there's representatives from the planning board that want to discuss that, and just kind of get a firm procedure in for that. And then I think you were going to take this one, Rich, but I just wanted to circle back on it.
Already have.
Do you know what I'm going to ask?
Procedures?
For LaFave to avoid the roads.
For which one?
Solar Hills, the development there, where the gentleman came in last week, and this was brought up actually in the inspector's meeting, is how do we avoid the situation where the town doesn't own the road and the developer doesn't own the road, and now it seems to have...
Yeah, that was part of the procedures that we're talking about because they'd signed a Mylar and stuff that's being worked on.
Okay.
And supposedly it's done, but now Glenn wants to get with Sumner because he doesn't agree with something Sumner said and they need to talk it out.
Okay.
I did follow up on that from last week's meeting.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure it's on the list. The new occupant of what was formerly Jack's Coming has not gotten an occupancy permit.
Okay.
I believe that's Mr. Khalil, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, he doesn't have an occupancy or a sign permit. I know there was a kind of interim there where he was cleaning things out, but they seem to be...
It's cleaner.
Is that the same Mr. Khalil as on the corner Page Road?
Yeah.
He's done a tremendous job on the exterior of that property. I would never have guessed it could look that nice. And you
Once
need
all the
to let
siding's
it-
finished, it'll be better.
I'm here to tell you, the ZBA had a sidewalk on there when Mr. Crosby was still here. And I'm telling you.
And then I don't know if we want to discuss this in non-public, but I have a list of illegal junkyards that were brought to my attention when we started talking about one, and all of a sudden I have a list of addresses.
Of illegal junkyards?
Yeah, it's kind of the usual suspects, but so you don't need to go out and check that one. I guess I just wanted to confirm that if he hadn't come to the police, so I figured we could just send him a letter, just notifying that he needs to complete his occupancy permit.
Sure.
So Susan,
That's for Jack's Towing or whoever.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
yeah, something Truck World or something.
He needs a letter telling him he needs to complete his occupancy permit.
Yep.
That's it.
Fire hadn't gone in there, and it should be pretty straightforward. board since the previous occupant had gotten an occupancy permit, so.
How big is your list for illegal junkyards?
I mean, I can give vague address. I only have 3.
It's only 3?
Yeah. The one on Frontage Road that we spoke about, Toll Road, there's quite a bit going on there. And the one you already spoke about on New Boston Road.
What about the property on the left when you're going down 125 by the fairgrounds?
That's the frontage road.
It's
one.
frontage road, yeah.
That was horrible. And now it's very visible from the road.
It was the meteor strike the other day.
Did you hear what that was?
That was a
What?
parachute
It was
flare.
a
Yeah.
parachute with a torch that somebody shot.
All right, that's all I had. I will defer to other committee liaisons.
Parks and Recreation. I talked to you, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago about they wanted to do a warrant article on the swing set equipment at
We only have a recreation department.
Recreation.
The one
That's
decided
the other
to-
TV show. They want to do a warrant article on the playground equipment at Como Field. They want us to put it in. I mean, that's typically what we do, right, on those.
Not necessarily.
Necessarily.
So, do they have to do it by petition?
Well, do we want to endorse it? Only if the Board of Selectmen endorses it, would we put in a warrant article. I don't know that they want us to do that, because we may not
So,
necessarily agree.
when are
with
the
it.
petition articles due? The 15th?
I think it's the 16th.
Of January.
16th.
Yeah. I think
Of
we-
what, January?
January, yeah.
Oh, that gives them plenty of time. All right, we'll do this, citizen. I had a note that it's December, so.
Has Rich seen you about the secretary one yet?
No, he said he was
Okay.
gonna get me some language on it. We
Okay.
talked about it.
Then the other situation there is they had their tree lighting last night, an ugly sweater contest. Had a family show up that refused to mask. And they asked them to leave, and they did. Then they came back later, stood outside and watched the judging of the sweaters. I guess they knew somebody was in it, and started yelling again and basically said that they were exempt from the rule, but never told them why. And he just wanted us to know in case something came out of this. So,
There's one everywhere.
Kevin?
No, I updated last week, nothing changed in the budget committee, just those dates. Do we clear up everything now? Are we gonna be at the high school?
Yep.
Yes, we are for all 4 meetings.
Okay.
I did one of my levitation calls. With the we can't go in there.
I did speak with Debbie about the letter. She's going to revise it.
Excellent. Can I go back a second?
Hang on. I gotta get to Ellie first, then we'll go back.
Okay.
I'm really all set. You heard from Rich tonight, and even last week he updated, the same with Tammy, and I have HDC Wednesday night. So there's a couple more things up for Main Street. Other than that, everything's cool.
Actually, dealing with budget committee, I never understood it either, but there was 5,000 in recreation for fireworks. It was taken out of recreation. There is no money anywhere in the budget for fireworks, and there is no reserve fund really for Kingston Days. So do we want to put 5,000 somewhere for fireworks? We're going to say no, they're going to have to raise their own money. I just want everyone to be clear, right now there is no money for fireworks.
I think that money came out of there for the 325.
I think we need to have fireworks next summer. We've had a tough year for everybody. We're gonna want some kind of celebration for Kingston Days weekend. Whether Kingston Days weekend gets organized or not, I think we should have fireworks. That's my opinion.
so you're saying the Kingston group has no money now?
They have money, you just put them in different
Now,
accounts.
if you look at the reserve, I was looking at the reserve fund.
Yeah.
It's not in our packet. There was no like this, that stuff is set up, it was rechanged for the 350th committee.
Which 53?
Okay, so there's really no money for, there's no $5,000
So
for
they
fireworks.
swept everything out of whatever was left in 325 and set it up for 350 with nothing in
Pretty much, yeah, there's really no seed money
Okay.
that I know of. So I just want to make sure we understand that right now there's no money for fireworks.
I thought what took place last year is the Kingston Days budget was shifted to the rec department. So that,
No.
was that not something we were discussing?
It was certainly discussed, yeah.
That they have oversight over it, but, yeah, they have oversight over the books per se, but
I move that we place $5,000 in the budget for fireworks for 2021.
do you want to put it on, well, I'll second the motion for discussion.
And would I put it under recreation? Yes, I would.
Or do we put it under patriotic purposes?
That's, no,
No? Okay.
that's not what that's for.
No,
Okay.
I would put it under the recreation department.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay, I'll go. I think this and the playground equipment are prime examples of things that have always been fundraised in the past. If people want to have an event like that, they're fundraised for it. And I think they're worthy causes that people should donate for. But I think when we start taking taxpayer dollars to put on parades that nobody attends and, you know, fireworks shows that may or may not be attended, I think if the people want them, they should fundraise for them and put their money up. I don't see that as the town's function to spend taxpayer dollars on fireworks.
I'm going to disagree with my learned colleague on the fireworks because there's something exciting, I think, about the fireworks that people look forward to, whether it's 4th of July weekend or Kingston Days. I think it brings the community together. We get a big crowd for the fireworks every year. We didn't have any this year, obviously. We've skipped some years, no question. It's usually comes through Kingston Days. So there wasn't a separate, there was fundraising for Kingston Days, which included the fireworks. I kind of agree with you on that piece of it, but I think,
I'm not diminishing the value of
I
fireworks.
know that, I understand that, but we haven't really specifically fundraised for fireworks, we fundraised for Kingston Days, which encompass a lot of activities beyond the fireworks. It's not a matter of the parades or any of that. I think it generates a lot of community spirit to have fireworks.
What I would say, hoping to win you over, I agree with you on the playground equipment, that's something separate. The fireworks, having myself raise money for the Brentwood fireworks over at the county, doing it 3 years in a row, that was not easy to raise the money. It was very, very hard, to the point where we never really raised the total amount that we needed for them. We always ended up finding someone else to
So
kick
the
in.
part we shouldn't do it is supposed to.
Including one year that kicked in.
That's not being very supportive, Kevin.
No. Last year, someone tried that the Friday or Saturday night, whenever they went off, was always well attended. But someone tried doing it when at the Pops concert or whatever, the Philharmonic concert, where no one was in attendance. That I disagreed with. Someone just made that decision on their own, and I disagree with that. But I think the Kingston Days, the Friday or Saturday, was always held well attended and well worth the money.
When we go back to 4th of July, it doesn't have to be Kingston Day, since we don't really have a working committee anymore. I mean, the 4th of July.
Well, if we don't have a working committee, there needs to be people who have skin in the game who are gonna see this through. To put $5,000 into the budget for fireworks and have no provision for anybody to work this event, for traffic control, for all of these things cost money, and they cost a lot more than $5,000.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yep.
And so therefore, if you or all of you are not in favor, just vote it down.
Okay, I'm just making my point. No, the further point is that there are a lot of other entertainment ways. I mean, we did the laser show. I think it should be on the Kingston Days committee to decide what those funds that they're raising or at least going to,
May raise.
I'm not opposed to giving a chunk of money to the Kingston, as seed money, if that truly is the case, where there is no reserve fund for the Kingston Days Committee, I'm not opposed to putting $5,000 into the Kingston Days Committee to at least get them started again on that. I find that hard to believe there's no money in there. But if that's the case, but I think specifically earmarking it for fireworks, A, hamstrings the committee into making them do an event that may or may not coincide with what they have planned. And you're taking some of the autonomy of that board away from them in order to plan events. So.
Well, they certainly don't look to us for any leadership.
The history is we used to get them donated for years.
We can probably take.
American Thunder, that was back, yeah.
Illegal post his budget a little
There's
bit.
quite a display in Kingston Lake.
I don't know, we give him a couple extra thousand, we'll probably have a great display.
Yeah, or you just put $500 to the best, homemade fireworks show and let the people take it from
They're
there.
pretty spectacular down there.
Make it a contest. Make it a
Yeah,
contest.
well, I'm not gonna say anything else, I really.
Anybody else further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Alessio,
Yes.
Briggs,
I'm gonna abstain.
Come on, Dawn.
No.
St. James,
Yes.
and Wilson.
It's okay to say no, really. I might cry, but it's okay.
Can I make a lady cry?
Well, I'm not much into fireworks anyway, and I
So-
kind of
Then say
agree.
no. They don't do it on my behalf. It's,
My opinion, yourself. You can make his own mind up without you.
I think I have to go because I can't figure out where the money from Kingston Days went, because there seems like there's an awful lot of money there.
I'll come back with some information. I'll do some research.
Okay, well, that's a tie with your abstention.
I'll come back with some more.
so the motion fails.
Motion fails. Yep.
With tie vote, the motion fails.
I'll come back at the next meeting with some more information. Maybe someone would like to donate.
Reconsider. If we have somebody that donates
On the
part of it.
prevailing side has to ask for reconsideration, is how it works. That's the official Robert's Rules of Order procedure,
Fair enough.
okay?
Okay, other board business.
I have an issue for non-public.
Okay, bond release for Vines. Do we decide this?
No, Dennis had a note in there.
It's basically down to some vegetation that needed to be replanted. He said if you're fine with it, he's fine with it at this point, basically, I think. The email is there.
Yeah, they've done a good job over there.
Which bond are they?
Fine.
Big vines. He said,
For his-
all work has been completed except there are some trees that died and need to be replanted. That's the Vines lot. If not-
Actually, I gotta ask on this, is this the Vines commercial lot or the Vines building lot on North Road? 'Cause they were,
Yeah, I don't know, I just know that they keep asking if their bond can be released and
Is Hawks Ridge on North Road? Because it says Hawks Ridge.
no, well, so,
we've got two issues
just,
in one.
just to
Okay, all right,
conflate this
gotcha.
issue even further, the Vines commercial property is abutted or directly on Hawks Ridge.
Jesus.
But they put up two houses on North Road. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
I think regarding Hawks Ridge, Dennis is pretty clear that he does not want that to be released.
I think he sent Susan some notes about what the bond should be that you were showing me last week.
Yeah, he
It's about 100.
provided Jim Dufresne with a copy of the cost analysis. Jim Dufresne picked out the parts that's strictly for
He took out
the driveways
strictly,
of the road, then that came to less than 100,000, that's where he got the 100,000. Dennis thinks it should be more, because the total of the expense report is much higher, and he said a lot of that work has not been done.
That's
Yeah.
the
the difference was is Dennis didn't know if we were trying to bond the whole thing again or just the road pavement. He said the pavement was okay at 100,000, but if we were gonna bond the swells and all that other stuff, that we needed more. But I think what we're doing is saying you can't get any of your building permits until you do that, so that's our leverage on that.
which I did get a call today. They're starting the swales for those two houses we gave permission for.
And he did get the letter and call refusing his pool permit until he could show proof that the right-of-way had been changed to 25 feet and how it got changed to 25 feet instead of 50.
So I received a call today from the head of their association that still, is there a cease and desist on that?
On the pool?
No, so that permit has been revoked and he's been notified.
Permit has been revoked.
That didn't go out yet.
No.
Robert just gave it to me to type.
Well, we're
He
still on.
wanted me to see it first.
The pool guy called and wanted an inspection by Robert. He said no. Said there's no permit now. So
Okay.
that's where it stands.
So there's still ongoing work is what the call I got today.
And
So
he's
we still
been,
gotta get that cease and desist.
Well, no, he was notified that he was taking his own risk.
at his own risk, that if
Yeah.
he could prove it to the 25-foot right-of-way instead of 50, that he would have to tear the pool out. And I talked to the planning board, and no one knows how it got changed to 25 feet. The Mylar says 50 feet.
Well, that needs to be straightened out.
What does he have for paperwork? Has he produced that yet or not yet?
When he turned in his permit, he turned in a permit that showed a 25-foot right-of-way.
Yeah, I remember that plot.
Okay, then the Mylar and the original shows a 50-foot right-of-way, which gives him no room for a pool. So what Robert said to him is, you know, unless you can bring us paperwork to verify that it's 25 feet and how you got to 25 feet, there's no pool permit.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I know that, but has he produced any paperwork
Not
yet?
yet, not as far as I know.
Okay. As far as the vines thing, the tree thing, we really can't comment on. The planning board needs to say whether that's completed to the site plan or not. So,
I'll talk to them tomorrow night.
yeah, I think pending that, would the board be in favor of?
Yeah, normally the planning board signs off on a bond release.
Yeah, I mean, I see why the Box Ridges one is coming to us, but the other one, I don't know why it would be on us.
Okay.
One quick question on Oxford. So they are putting that swale in. And it's my understanding that the board voted to release both of those houses that are under construction.
They are released, except the one that's Tyvek.
Okay.
Dennis had concerns about that they've never verified where it is, you know, as far as the plot plan, which he's asking to do. And he wants an inspection of the house before they do any work to make sure plywood hadn't rotted or anything while it's been exposed to the weather.
So it's looking for them to plot it on the plan and to do an inspection.
Do an inspection to make sure everything's okay in the house,
It needs to be plotted on that plan. Okay.
because they moved that house. One other thing on a new business I forgot.
We're on board business right now.
Okay. Board business, can qualify to that.
Okay.
We talked,
Can it wait until we
Yeah.
get through?
so I don't forget.
Okay, we'll circle back. The CIP submission, what's this one, Susan?
Rich suggested that the perambulation of bounds has not been followed up well. He's been
Right.
handling
Yeah.
it. He thinks that to cover that, to have a surveyor and move those, it's gonna end up like 5,000 per town. There's 8 towns. He thought maybe that should be on the CIP. So I printed up, you can barely read that. I tried to do it online, but, to give to them for CIP, but that's comes from you.
But he was saying that we should do one boundary every year for the next 8
That would be
years.
the decision. Each one has to be done every 7 years. There's only one that's current. I think Fremont was done in 2015. Everything else is old.
Okay, so we need to do that.
Yeah, so either do them at once and catch them up, or just budget 5,000 a year.
So you don't need to sign, us to sign anything on that?
I think there's a place for someone to sign on the bottom before I give it to Glenn.
Did you need a motion and, yeah, it says bottom line.
I know.
So we want to ask Dennis to come in and speak to us about it?
To do the perambulation.
I think if we approve this and then have, I don't know who does it, would it be Dennis Patel, the surveyor, each town? I don't know who does that, Don. I have
Well,
no
Rich
idea.
used to do them.
Well, we're not gonna have, obviously Rich said for us to take that on and get it done.
Right, so maybe we want to talk to Dennis about it before we move forward?
Do we want to do that or put that out to bid?
I think it needs,
It's a specific thing that I think would go beyond
Okay.
the typical AU kind of
Yeah.
thing that the contract for Dennis provides for.
Are you
I think it-
suggesting we do it all at one time and then do one a year, in 7 years?
No, I think it would be a contract basis
Oh, okay.
that all of these bounds need to be done.
within a certain time frame.
With, yeah, except that if they want to do it all at once, great. If not,
Okay, I'm fine with that.
You want to do that, just do that, just put it, have Susan create an RFP for it?
how is it supposed to go to the CIP first so we can get it in the master or the?
Yeah, I just thought it should be something that because of the amount of money that it should go to the CIP and then however you want to handle it as far as
Let's
planning for it is kind of separate, I guess.
If we put in the CAP now, can we get it to pop up in March, April timeframe to get done? Or February to put out an RFP for March, April conclusion date?
I guess Kevin's question is, should we be putting that in the budget?
Yeah, probably should do something for it. That's why I'm saying I just don't know how much to put in the budget, is my question. That's,
You got to bid it first.
yeah. That's why I think maybe let's put in the capital improvement, let's put out the bid, and hopefully we can get bids back.
You're not gonna get things back to the budget.
Yeah, I think
It's too
Well,
much.
based on what Rich was saying, it's a requirement, but I think it's worthwhile for us to plan this one out and have, I don't think trying to shoehorn this in at the end of December is a smart idea for us.
Well, let's
I
just,
would agree with that. It's because you really can't, you're gonna go into bad weather, I'm assuming we have a normal
Right.
winter. We're
well, I
not-
think that's why it'd be good to, like, they're not gonna be busy right now to do the bid. It wouldn't be right, we're not gonna get it for January. So let's put in the capital improvement, and when we're ready, start crafting an RFP, and when we're ready, send it out.
Susan, do you have a tickler file to remind us when we know we're gonna follow up with something that's a couple, 3 months down the road?
I'm trying to get that more in place because these things keep on coming up.
Right,
So
right,
that-
and that's one of them. This is gonna be one of them right here.
Yeah.
And the Sam's Lane issue down there, that's 2 things already.
Okay, there's a summary of the bank accounts in everybody's folders. Is there action needed on that, or is that just for our review?
FYI.
But I will say, I just had a quick conversation, there used to be a 350th. There is money for the 350th, I thought, and it's not listed here.
But
See, I thought we took the leftover money from 350 and rolled it into the Kingston days last year.
I mean, the 325th,
To do.
Did we, is that what we did? We spent all the money out of it?
No, there was money left over from the 325th.
there's gotta be some money.
Yeah,
There was some left, but not much.
From the 325th, it's rolled over to the 350th.
I thought we.
That's what I'm saying, I thought we renamed it to 350th or something, but I don't
And
know.
I think she did.
But it's not listed
I
here,
saw that, yeah.
so,
So we need to find out from.
Yeah.
I'll find out.
Last thing on the board business before we get to Rich is we need to decide if the town hall can close at noon on the 24th and the 31st. We have been doing so at least for the past
I
3
would,
years.
I would say yes.
Yes.
Post it immediately.
Is that a motion?
I move it.
Second.
Okay, motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Rich?
We talked briefly about a month ago about a warrant article for a 12-hour enforcement officer. And I don't know if we want to do that or not. This came up with Cindy the other day because I went down and reminded her that this year all the warrant articles have to have a price tag on them. She had forgotten about that, and she was glad I reminded her because some of them are going to take some work. Do we want to put up for a part-time enforcement officer?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we-
Absolutely,
Then it needs to be in a form of a warrant article. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
do we want
We need one
12 hours
now.
or?
We need, No, a year later, we're gonna come back to town manager.
My thing when I brought it up a month ago was that we make it a 12-hour position and then eventually combine it with one of the other part-time inspectors, whether it be health or building, to get it up to a 30-hour position or full-time at that point.
I know, you and I had talked about that a while back, but I feel strongly that people need to understand that we have a severe need for a code enforcement officer. I think we'd be derelict. We can always hire a part-timer. We can always keep it part-time, but I really think they need to understand the severity of the need. We've got some serious development coming into play, and we do not have the muscle to manage some of these issues.
And I think a lot of the concerns that are being raised on potential projects in town, almost 95% of the concerns can be addressed with a code enforcement officer to enforce the site plan regulations that are being enacted. I think it's legitimate for people to be concerned that it's just a piece of paper that isn't going to be followed, but I would encourage people to vote for this because that does make sure that the time spent in the planning board and these public meetings and everything like that isn't for naught. It's actually enforced.
It helps the abutters, the neighbors of these development properties with legitimate concerns about noise abatement, infringements on their borders and vegetation. All these come into play, and we need someone that is in line of defense before they come to us for relief.
I thought we were gonna combine up, go full-time, and have that include the health officers, the positions of the health officer, and keep the building inspector on as almost a consultant, but still assistant.
See, I feel like it's more of a building inspector combined than a health officer because most of the issues are.
Yeah, and the health officer technically reports or is appointed by the state.
Right.
And it's, I mean, it can be, I mean, Fremont has the building inspector as the health inspector, but I think
Building and code usually go hand in hand.
I still like the idea of going for a 12-hour in that neighborhood position, see how it works out, see what the need is, go back next year if we need to for more hours and say this is why we need more hours.
I think you're gonna find very rapidly with the MS4 thing alone.
Yeah.
Just someone going around following up on these stormwater management plans will be half their year right off the bat. And then, site plans and just the day-to-day complaints that come in.
Look, every single...
I've been dealing with a lot of those complaints lately and it does take a lot of.
Every single building project that has happened in town, we've had issues with, from the storage to Fieldstone, to Hawkridge, to the Vine property, to everything. It's consumed a lot of, it consumed a lot of time to support, and we already know, not see where it goes. I think we go for the full-time and combine up the position.
We can
So that-
consolidate internally anyways. I mean, we've got the Sears Logistic property more than likely will go through. They're mirroring our regulations. You're gonna have the Sanborn property go through. There's gonna be issues, you'll need inspectors there as well. There's just too much going on. I think we'd be derelict. I'm gonna ask you guys to join me in some letters to the editor because we're gonna have to get out there and solve this, and people need to understand that there's an issue.
The only problem with what you say, Kevin, is that our warrant article has to specify what we're doing.
Yeah, full-time and funded for half a year.
So you're gonna.
Full-time code enforcement.
Okay, just that for now,
Yeah.
okay.
We still have the other positions, and if we need to consolidate and redirect some.
But let's take another warrant article at another time. You can't consolidate, you can't change the position without a warrant article.
And
That's what I've been told.
I mean, I've spoken to
Because
Robert about this.
it's a different position.
I think the intent was, when we spoke about it, is he, would basically stay on as the building inspector, get this person up to speed. They would be doing code enforcement things while shadowing him in the building inspector role, and then when he's ready for that to not be the case anymore, then that person would take on his role as well. And again, I think with this MS4 thing and just all these things together, we need a full-time person because I think It's just like, so Glenn Greenwood's contract came up. I mean, the hours that were allotted to that at the beginning and then what it is now, it just snowballed. And that's a contract, but I think to keep coming back to the people and asking, well, we're gonna make this person full-time now, we're gonna make this person full-time now. It makes them question, well, why are they doing that? When I think we know that this is gonna be a big role, so.
My other comment would be is if we're gonna go for a full-time person, I urge people to write letters of support.
Yes.
People that are on committees that see the need for it, explaining to the people the need for it.
Right, I totally agree.
So I would tell her to draft a warrant article for full-time code enforcement.
I would also think that we should probably start getting a job description put together. And this would be another, I think, employment contract. Or would that be a direct hire thing?
Could be either.
I don't know if we want a contract for that.
Should be working under the direction.
You need a job description for sure.
Yeah, we need a job description, absolutely.
Oh, I just want to float that out there. and look-
Yeah, no, I don't think we want to do a contract position for that.
Director.
It's not the same as a fire chief or
No.
a police chief, right? No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
So let's go back, pedal. So full-time code enforcement, full-time secretary, admin for highway department.
Right.
And what else do we have for selectmen's warrant articles?
The LED lighting, is that one of yours?
Yep, the lighting.
Yeah. I don't know of any others. I can't think of anything else.
Can we do one where bicyclists have to run single file down the road?
Let's put like curbing around the.
No, I just want them to be pulled over when they're riding 8 wide.
You want points in the back of the fender? Ay, ay, ay. I'm sorry.
Is that cover, Rich? Okay, public comment. Okay, so we have an email here from, I believe, this is a resident on Jericho Drive. And I was just looking at this real quick. I think there are some valid questions in here that I think should probably be forwarded to our attorney to review. First,
That long email with all the references
Yep.
that he gave us, yeah.
and I think,
They want to talk to the planning also, that's how it started out.
okay,
And I was gonna call him today.
Did you say, I haven't seen that.
It's in your, it's in your,
packet.
yeah, it's in your
They gave it
packet.
back, I just gave, put it as.
I saw it for the first time
correspondence.
tonight, so.
Has Glenn seen this? Do you know?
I came up to find out from Ellen if they had gotten back to him, and she said Glenn was going to call him this afternoon.
Okay. I'm going to come see Glenn tomorrow, so I'll make sure that comments on it.
Yeah.
Can I come on and go?
sure. All right, so we've got some items to be signed here.
There's some of the abatements that I brought last week that I forgot to put in the tax collector's page, so it's just another signature that's lacking. You already approved those two. And then there's two administrative abatements because they are, it's not a reduction of their assessment, it's a correction. One of them is, they didn't get their discount because their bank didn't take it. I know we get those every year, but it's before the deadline, I believe, still. So,
Okay, so I'm going in order of the pile here.
oh, sorry.
R.C. Brayshaw, is that the town report people?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay, so we were gonna do 200.
you already voted on that.
yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was here, I heard that too. This one says
It
400.
says 400, so we're gonna
200.
agree to 200.
All right, so,
I get another paper, he
Yeah.
said that's not even that important, but it just, it makes it more, I can take the minutes.
He was listening.
Obviously.
He wasn't one of those riding the bicycle.
all right, so we've got an application for facilities use from the,
I'm
VFW?
gonna use out front, I believe.
okay, so
The front.
for Wreaths Across America.
Okay.
Is Does anybody have any objection to that?
Fine.
Others need to sign that as well.
Never heard the ladder truck story.
No, I think he's confused. There was a kid just a couple of weeks ago, that, actually a couple months now, he took out the, turned it a little too quick. Wasn't out of the truck yet. That wasn't me.
Were you the instructor?
No, I wasn't even.
Sleeping?
Yeah, yeah. There might have been a telephone pole scraped during a parade. But no real, handrail.
I'm not gonna say it.
Okay, I'll take a motion on the minutes.
So moved, both public and non-public.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor?
I
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Are you done with the POs?
Okay, I believe that's everything. Yep, we'll go to non-public unless anybody has anything further. Under 10 minutes. Oh, what are we going in for, Don?
Employment issue, legal employment issue.
Personnel, employment issues? Okay, that will conclude the public portion of this evening's Selectmen's meeting. Thank you for joining us.